Hello, everyone, and welcome into Thinking About DFS. Davis Mattek and Jakob Sanderson, our weekly NFL Daily Fantasy NFL podcast where we break down game by game all of the games on the main slate on DraftKings. Jacob, the Gold Star plays last week, Brian Thomas Jr. and T. Higgins. Normal week, insanely good plays, right? They both Brian Thomas Jr. got 26, T got 28, I think. And in the end, basically irrelevant because the plays of the slate were a $3,500 tight end who was 70% owned, and Jamar Chase, who was the most expensive wide receiver, who we kind of poo-pooed in a way. Neither of us were that in to Jamar Chase. Not that Jamar Chase is ever a bad play, but sometimes the chalk is the chalk for a reason.
Yeah, it was kind of nice to have all that chalk in the Rams-Packers game that was late, because, basically the way I made all my lineups last week, and easier to do and only make like 5, but was I just wanted to get some information early. So unfortunately the ownership projection on Brian Thomas came in as I expected, quite a bit lower than his actual ownership. It was fine because he scored so many points, but that was a little bit annoying. But I was playing a lot of the Colts-Jags game early, and then I tried to put in like 1 or 2 pieces that were kind of funky in each lineup. And then just get that information. So especially what I was trying to do is I had one of my lineups. I played the expensive Josh Allen stack. It'll shock every listener to know that lineup did not perform very well. And then one had the Lamar stack, which performed quite a bit better. And then based on that, just kind of got to figure out, do I get to play any of these Packers, right? And the Lamar, Higgins, Thomas, Downs, all that stuff, all the fun stuff line up. I get to keep my Kyron, Tracy, Kraft, and good things happen. Other lineups, I'm, trying to search for, okay, let's see if I have to play DK Metcalf. Let's see if I have to play whoever.
Right.
So it makes it a little bit easier because you already have enough information that whether a 35% owned punt tight end is actually in your financial interest or not before you have to play it, which is makes things a little bit easier for sure. Luckily, the cheap, heavily owned play that I had in my one good lineup was not Dontavian Wicks. So that was fortunate because otherwise that would have made that game even more tilting than it was.
Poor Dontavian, man. He gets open. I've not looked at ESPN Open Score after last week. I'm going to guess he graded out very well. He was open, extremely open, unable to secure many of those passes. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. And we are actually going to begin with what is a very interesting game, I think. We have the Washington Commanders against the Baltimore Ravens. I actually was surprised to see the Commanders team total be so low here in what is a high total game. The Ravens highest team total of the slate, 29 points. The Commanders 22.5. And Lamar obviously will be giga owned. He is a phenomenal play. Interesting to see both the split in projection and in projected ownership for Daniels, because correct me if I'm wrong, but the Ravens are really setting themselves up as an extreme pass funnel, correct?
Yes. And they kind of have been for a couple of years now, but I think it's gotten even to more extreme this year. Secondary has really, really regressed over the years. This is going to be a super fun game. This game honestly should be the Sunday Night Football game, but it isn't. So, I think you can make a case for basically just about everybody in this game. The one that stands out to me right away is if there's going to be that big of an ownership discrepancy between Lamar and Daniels, then I think Daniels clearly is the better play. He might even be my favorite play straight up. The only aggravating thing about Daniels is just the way that their passing game is.
He is unstackable at this ownership.
Well, you can stack
Daniels
it with McLaurin, but that's the problem. Is he's McLaurin's the only guy that you can talk yourself into having a correlated ceiling with Daniels. But I don't even think he's a great value play at 6.4. And if he's going to be 20% plus owned, then he's I think kind of just a horrendous play. So you kind of then have to play Daniels naked, I think, which is fine. It's not my preference, right? Like you look at it last week.
It's just a lot harder to build winning lineups when you're trying to hit a 9-leg parlay.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Like if you look last week, the winning combo is the Burrow double. And it's just so much easier to build lineups that way because once you've decided to play Burrow, you kind of already have decided, like, I have to double stack him. And then that's one thing that you got right, but you actually got 3 things right. With Daniels, you got to get one thing right, and then you got to get 2 more things perfectly right to get to the same spot in your lineup. So it just makes it more challenging, but obviously in play.
I think you can definitely do Lamar and Zay, Lamar and Likely. I mean, again, Likely coming in at like 1% owned or whatever. Just, get real, folks. Isaiah Likely in a given week is just going to be the best guy to stack with Lamar for 2 reasons. The first being Zay is getting expensive now because his role is so good. Zay will also always be more owned, and Likely you can use at tight end. And also every week, there will always be some subset of people who can't give it up with Mark Andrews. Like Mark Andrews will still be like 2% owned. Like he really will.
I think if I was going to go, like, Zay is the best stacking partner. I agree. Likely is number 2. And if I had to pick a third, I highly doubt he'll be in any of my lineups, but I would get to Bateman before I would get to Mark Andrews.
I suppose the more interesting thing here is, one, what happens if we finally see Jayden Daniels struggle in an NFL game? Like if we finally see Jayden Daniels kind of meet his match with the defensive coordinator, maybe he takes a couple sacks, maybe there's a bad turn. Just like Jayden Daniels, I promise you, and I promise myself, he will eventually struggle in an NFL game. He struggled in college games. Cliff Kingsbury is doing a good job, relatively speaking, but is not what I would not call him a master tactician. I would not call him, one of these truly great offensive coordinators. That obviously would lead you to a Henry game. And what's interesting was Henry was chalk last week, will not be chalk this week against this awful Commanders defense. I basically never play Derrick Henry, especially on DraftKings. You could talk me into it this week. Probably too expensive because there's not any like real standout value plays. But who you could really talk me into is Derrick Henry on the Commanders. His name is Brian Robinson Jr. He just scores every single week. So you start out with 6 points from a touchdown from Brian Robinson Jr. I mean, you could definitely say this is a better Eckler game. Like they project their big road dogs here. But Brian Robinson Jr., I think is in the pool for me.
I need a full practice from him. Just based on like last week, he came out, he got the 2 early touchdowns, clearly came in hurt, and then they got a big lead, which is what you want script wise if you have Brian Robinson. But they said, okay, I know you're not 100%, so we're just going to play Jeremy McNichols in the second half. He only gets 7 carries. That's the scary part for me. If he gets a full practice in, I agree he's in the pool. Probably not without that. I would also just say from a matchup perspective, like we just talked about, they are a pass funnel. I don't think they're going to run very efficiently in this game with Robinson, but he's very live for 2 touchdowns every single time he takes the field.
He also, Eckler is the pass catching back, but Brian Robinson has been a good pass catching running back for like the last year.
He gets stuff on early downs.
Yeah, and normally you'd say, oh, well, like running quarterbacks don't throw it to their running backs, but that is not how it's working in this offense because Cliff is so obsessed with keeping the ball close to the line of scrimmage.
That's how it was with Kyler, too. Kyler threw to running backs under Cliff quite a bit. And not since. But when he was with Cliff, like Chase Edmonds is always getting targets. Kenny and Drake got some targets.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move to the next game. Actually, wow. Starting out, and this is normally not how it goes, but we are starting out with 2 very strong games. I think Arizona at Green Bay has a pretty strong chance of being the game of the week.
Jeff Janis Memorial game.
The Jeff Janis. Wow. Yeah, we got it. We got to do it. We got to do it for Jeff. So we have the Arizona Cardinals with honestly a team total that feels a smidge low to me at 21.5. And then the Packers with the team total that feels more correct to me, 26.5. This is the dreaded West Coast team traveling east, although it's still Central Time Zone, so not all the way east. I don't want to say this, but man, it does feel like James Conner and Josh Jacobs are like the huge leverage plays here, and these 2 teams just end up running the ball down each other's throat. Talk me out of that. Talk me into, McBride, Jaden Reed, Michael Wilson, Tucker Kraft. Like, tell me that these teams are going to air it out.
What do you think the ceiling is on Josh Jacobs? Because he's split touches, so it seems like he kind of has like a touch cap. And then he gets some pass work, but not that much. I don't know. It's just, and he's also kind of bad, so he's not going to have like
scores
a very
3
long run.
He can totally score 3 touchdowns in this game. The Arizona Cardinals run defense is so bad to the point that it impacts how we feel about their offense for fantasy, because when teams like, you could run, I think successfully, you could run the wishbone against the Arizona Cardinals defense. You could just be like they just are giving up like 5 yards every time a team chooses to run the ball against them. It's really stunningly bad stuff.
Yeah, that's all true. I think if I'm going to play a running back in this game, I like Connor a lot more. I think he's more talented at this stage of their respective careers, and he doesn't really lose any touches. All Connor loses is third down work to Amari DiMercato that never really results in a touch. But like every time that they actually use the running backs, it's Connor. And I just trust him more as a talent. I also think Arizona's a little bit more stubborn with it. Like Green Bay seems like one of those teams where, they play from head, they'll hand it off a bunch. They play from behind, they don't mind abandoning the run. Arizona seems ideologically committed to the run, and I think they kind of have to be, because I don't know that Kyler is really going to succeed as just a pure.
So it's not even that. It's not even that. I'll push back on that a little bit. They're definitely ideologically committed to the run. I continue. I mean, I've been in and out on Kyler. Like the subscribers to the channel are like,
gotta get back in after last week, man. He just beat the 49ers.
Like, will you just make up your mind?
Tyreek Hill at the 43-yard line to a linebacker that was like 2 feet away from him.
Well, that's been.
Is it my birthday? What just happened?
That's really funny. That's really funny that it just did that. So the issue with Kyler is he is absolutely at his best when he is consistently getting outside of the pocket. When they're rolling him out to his right, when he's like, the first reason why that is he literally cannot see over the offensive line sometimes. Right. Now, he doesn't have the Bryce Young thing where he loses all velocity on his throws in the pocket, but he just a lot of the time will make a check down or take a sack when he is in the pocket because he literally cannot see. And I think McBride, by the way, like they were so bad in week 4 and then they get McBride back last week and they beat the 49ers, I think is pretty good evidence that McBride is a really key part of this offense. But anyway, to my larger point is that so much of what they do is based on running the ball, and they're really efficient at running the ball because they do that. I mean, Petzig is a McShanny guy. So it's based on everything is predicated off the run. And if they get down 10 points because their defense is so bad and the defense says, sure, you guys can just run James Conner up the gut, like whatever, it takes away a huge element of what they're doing. So any week you play Kyler, normally when your quarterback goes down 10 points in a game, you're like sick. Like I'm about to get 350 passing yards, pure garbage. You don't really want that with Kyler. You actually almost kind of prefer them to play from ahead because it's just going to open up so much more stuff. All this is a long way to say Connor I like more than Jacobs. I probably won't play a ton of Jacobs, but Reid and McBride. Reid now at 7,000. I think this ownership projection might be a little fake. I think people might have a hard time stomaching $7,000 Jaden Reid with Dobbs back and with Watson maybe playing. Watson got in a limited practice on Wednesday.
Yeah, that's stunning to me. Also, I think it's great for Reid. Like, it's obviously bad for Wicks because he's going to lose like half of his routes. But if you're Reid, like, whether he drops the ball or catches the ball, what we do know is that every time Dontavian Wicks on the field, he's the best target earner on the Packers. So if you're Jaden Reid, you don't want Wicks on the field. You want Romeo Dobbs.
Like you want Dobbs, yeah.
Right? Like you want Dobbs on that wall because Dobbs is just a total meat shield who's going to run a bunch of routes. He's going to keep the better target earners off the field. And we could sit here, we could have like the academic argument of, is Dobbs actually better than these other guys? Like whatever. It doesn't matter. When Dobbs is on the field, they don't throw to Dobbs. So if you're someone who is going to be on the field anyways, then you want Dobbs on the field because that's a guy you want to be competing for targets with. So Having Dobbs out there, I think, is actually a helpful meat shield for Reid. Watson is kind of his own thing, but I think Watson being on the field is also good for Reid and for everybody in this game, just because he doesn't earn a lot of volume necessarily, but he can hit on 50, 60-yard plays that speed up the game. And that's just, I think, beneficial for everybody else to kind of have that
he's
element.
The rare clear out wide receiver who the defense does have to respect because he can convert those. Like, he's like super Marquez Valdez-Scantling or whatever, like super Justin Watson, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he's just overall helpful. So we'll see if it is, if Watson or Dobbs, like if either one of them doesn't play, I will absolutely be going back to Mr. Wicks for sure. Which it seems like this ownership and these projections don't seem to have Watson projected in right now. So if that's an accurate ownership projection at all on Wicks, if people are that
there is no better bet in DFS than the guy who just earned team. I mean, he did lead the team in targets last week, but just like had some bad drops. There's really no better bet than going back to Wicks.
So I hope that we get 1 week without Watson, because I would love to play 100% Wicks. But if not, I think Jaden Reed is an outstanding play. I think he's just one of like the 10 best wide receiver talents in the NFL.
What about Kraft? 48. So he gets a huge price hike. $4,800 for Tucker Kraft.
We had one cheap tight end that I actually liked playing, and now it's been taken away from us.
I gotta say, the routes are just unassailable. Like, even if Musgrave does play, he's clearly like, he's just, like Dwayne McFarland's thing is like, if you're a tight end and you get 80% route participation, you're just a tight end one, because like no one does that, and Kraft is gonna have that. Love clearly likes throwing to him.
He's awesome.
Yeah, it's just part of the offense. I think there it might be a funny thing where like, oh, this guy scored 28 points last week and nothing changed, and it's a good matchup, but he got priced up, so now people aren't going to play him, which is just kind of funny.
Did you hear, first of all, did you know that AJ Dillon had a podcast?
I know he streams on Twitch. I didn't know he had a podcast.
Yes, there's a podcast. I assume mostly to talk about Farm Simulator, but on that podcast, he said that Tucker Kraft occasionally tells opponents when he's trash talking them that he's going to burn down their childhood homes.
That's good trash talk.
So he's a psycho in the best way. I love Tucker Kraft. I think he's like legitimately like the Dynasty tight end 4 right now, which is kind of says a lot about Dynasty. But not a Dynasty show, DFS show. I will play Tucker Kraft probably in Jordan Love doubles if I pick one receiver in Kraft, just because you got to correlate the tight end position. And on the other side of the game, I mean, probably it would be Kyler single. And I know the Michael Wilson usage has been pretty interesting lately. I just think I would still be probably only getting to Harrison or McBride. Wilson just strikes me. They've been using him as kind of a possession wide receiver. So I don't really know how high the ceiling is just from a raw points perspective. I think I'd be either Connor on that side with a Love double or Kyler with one of Harrison or McBride.
Yeah, Kyler, McBride, Reid, or Kyler, Marvin Harrison, Kraft. That's those are pretty interesting ways to set up lineups, I think. All right, we now have a fantasy Siberia game. I hope it's not. I hope I'm wrong about this being fantasy Siberia and that Drake May comes in and is absolutely stunning. But we have the Houston Texans without Nico Collins traveling to play at the New England Patriots. Pretty low total, very low team total. I think it's 36. Stroud, I guess the interesting thing is Stroud has just been a bad fantasy quarterback, even with Nico. Like, Nico, best wide receiver in the NFL. If you took Stroud in any of your drafts, you've been unhappy. Ramondre did not practice on Wednesday with a foot injury, probably just a veteran rest day. And then we have, I mean, Diggs is a good play. Dell, I don't know. What do you make of the Tank Dell thing? Are you this guy broke his leg and then got shot, and it's that simple?
Yeah, like, I don't know the specifics of the procedure or anything, but I know that him, Andrews, Mooney, and Pollard have all been in sort of the same universe of injury. And we now have proof of concept from Pollard and Mooney that it was the injury last year in that
Yeah.
Not only were they bad last year, but they've been good the year immediately after. So you can clearly assign blame. And then we've seen Andrews be bad this year. So I'm kind of treating Dell as more of a 2025 asset. That doesn't mean he can't have a good game, but I've definitely shifted my priors to not include the Tank Dell talent profile that we saw last year.
I would be into playing him because I think this ownership projection at 8% seems high, and the Diggs number actually seems a little bit low. But I think this could, if the Patriots have the worst offensive line in human history, truthers are right, this could be like an all-time brutal game. Like we could see Dare Ogunbowale, Cam Akers, and JJ Taylor combined for 28 rushes and just like an all-time a Texans get in, get out game. You know, it's like, okay, we lost Nico. We kind of need to regroup. We got an easy spot on the schedule this week. Like, let's score 17 points and let's go home.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely could see that. What do you make of the Dare stuff? Because last week they just came out and made him their starting running back.
The issue is I think Pierce is going to be back this week. So any potential rushing, I think it's actually going to be a 4-man backfield where Pierce is getting like first downs. Dare is getting third downs. Akers is still going to play a little bit, and JJ Taylor, or I think British Brooks got injured, if I remember correctly. But they've had 4 running backs active every game since the Mixon injury, and they've used 4 running backs every game since the Mixon injury. So if Pierce didn't play, maybe you could talk me into Dare a little bit, but yeah, it's pretty gross. I mean, people are going to want us to talk about Jalen Polk or Xavier Hutchinson. Hutchinson, maybe, I don't know. He played all of the
Hutchinson, Hutchinson is a viable play. But again, it's like you do need raw points in your lineup. And I think we're going to have some cheap running backs with some of the injuries. So assuming some of these running backs miss, I would rather get my savings playing a more owned cheap running back, just because you know that the ceiling can get there versus like you need ceiling wide receiver to win these tournaments. And I think most of the time Hutchinson's getting you like 7 to 10 points in a pretty bad game environment. So that's going to be a tough one for me to get to. The other one we should mention, I think there's a pretty good chance Ramondre Stevenson misses this game. He missed practice on Wednesday.
If he does, Gibson is a super jam.
Foot injury, yeah. So I think Gibson is one of those running backs that is going to be very in play at 5.3.
Yeah, I would be even with May. I mean, even at Brissett, I don't know. I just feel like he's going to catch 6 dump offs and any goal line, and he's been running really well this year.
Yeah,
people forget Antonio Gibson has basically always been a good player. His coaches just don't like him because he fumbles, which is sort of interesting.
Which is ironic in the current situation in which his backfield mate can't stop fumbling. So,
all right, we've got a pretty big talking point here with the next game, which is that one Mr. Spencer Rattler, QB1,
fuck yeah,
$4,000 DraftKings dollars. I'm intimately familiar with Mr. Rattler from his time at the University of Oklahoma.
I might play him in a $1 contest, but I'm playing him.
So break down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the New Orleans Saints with Spencer Rattler at quarterback. What are your expectations for this game?
Well, Spencer Rattler is fantastic. I already tweeted out this is why they make $1 contests, so that you can roll out Spencer Rattler double stacks. He's a very fun quarterback. I have some tweets from a pre-draft process saying that I thought Spencer Rattler was clearly a better quarterback prospect than Bo Nix and Michael Penix. That looked pretty ridiculous after the 4-round draft discrepancy, but could immediately be not wrong just early after this week. So here's hoping, Spencer. I plan on watching this game in full because I find Spencer Rattler just purely fascinating.
Well, he is fascinating, right?
Anything can happen type quarterback. Like
he was supposed to be
not that good, but he really believes in himself, and that's what's so fun to watch.
I mean, he was literally supposed to be the first overall pick. So the year, if you guys don't know the lore, the year that Caleb Williams was a true freshman at Oklahoma, Rattler was the quarterback, and it was supposed to be like the coronation year. He was supposed to win the Heisman, be the first overall pick. He gets benched at halftime against the University of Texas. Caleb comes in and is Caleb Williams, and he's just a great quarterback. And we never see Spencer Rattler again. He transfers to the University of Southern Carolina. Is not very good there, but does break Xavier Legette out. Xavier Legette has a crazy season with him. The way I'm playing this game is going to be Kamara. The interesting thing is that people might play Spencer Rattler in cash. Is that he's a $4,000 quarterback.
Right.
The thing is
he'll run a little.
He doesn't run. He scrambles, but he doesn't run. He had 410 rushing yards in college. He did have 16 rushing touchdowns, which tells me though that his college coaches were comfortable doing like some of the zone read, scramble drill stuff with him in the red zone. I think this is going to be your problem with Rattler. Is goddamn is Clint Kubiak. He's like every bad trait of the Shanahan stuff. They see Denny Carter had an article this week on Roto World about how like the mere second the Saints felt any kind of resistance, they stopped doing the pre-snap motion. They stopped doing the play action. They are, I believe, 32 out of 32 in negative PROE. Like they just want to run and this was when Carr was the quarterback. This is a fully healthy version of this offense. Now you have a 5th round rookie. I could see, I could see anything from Rattler going 280 yards and 2 touchdowns to the New Orleans Saints don't score a point in this game. Really.
Easily. The one thing I'm going to be doing, I haven't checked the waiver results, but I'm going to be playing Tampa defense like everywhere because I think in either of those incarnations, Spencer Rattler is a lock to throw a pick in this game, maybe 4, and he's a lock to take some sacks in this game. So it's going to be fun. The question is, this might be, I don't know if it's my gold star play because it has the potential to go very wrong, but I'm going to play some Chris Olave this week. I don't know if you've seen the Spencer Rattler interviews, but they've basically been like, what's your plan? He's like, I'm just finding 12. I'm throwing to 12 every play, which works for me. And he's a very talented wide receiver. It's going to be unowned, like 0.1% owned. In this
literally.
spot. And like Rattler is fun. Like I think maybe he just can't move the ball at all. But I'm somewhat dubious of that. I think it's more likely that he actually is able to move the ball and just has a lot of mistakes along the way, which is totally fine for wide receiver fantasy production. And it's an incredibly strong matchup for all of the Saints wide receivers. Tampa has been just giving it up. They got 509 yards to Kirk Cousins last week. They have a lot of soft zones in behind. So I'm open-minded to playing at least some Saints pass catchers at almost no ownership in this spot. And then, plenty of Tampa guys you can bring it back with if you so choose.
Yeah. Godwin, we did just see 35-year-old Chris Godwin, Juju Smith-Schuster go 7 for 130 against this New Orleans Saints defense on Monday night. Kamara is, I think, just like they just want to give him the ball. He's going to get 26 rush attempts if this game is competitive at all. I don't hate the Olave call. I think the Olave call seems pretty strong. I'm not playing into Baker. Mike Evans will score a touchdown in this game. It's just a matter of does he get ejected after scoring that touchdown against Marshawn Lattimore. This is the memorial boxing match between these two. Yeah. That's all. That's really all I got. It's Thursday morning. I'm undecided what I want to do. Like I really might play Spencer Rattler in cash. Like if you told me I'm getting 4 rush attempts from him, like just tell me he runs 4 times. I think I'm doing it, but I really don't know. Okay. This is where my gold star play of the week is going to come from. We have the Cleveland Browns traveling on the road to the Philadelphia Eagles. You know who needs a get right spot, Jacob?
Yes, Jalen Hurts.
The Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts need a get right spot more than they need oxygen. The Cleveland Browns are the punching bag of the NFL. Their defense might even be good. Like in a fictional universe where we could see them play with a competent quarterback.
9th best defense in the league.
But when teams are basically just like, you know that GIF that people do on Twitter of like the old 1930s cartoon of the Yankees just hitting home runs and rounding the bases? That's basically what teams get to do against them because the offense exclusively punts or turns the ball over. So they're just on the field all the time. And like, Jeremy McNichols is getting touchdowns against them. This is the most embarrassing team in the league. So my gold star play is going to be take your pick of AJ Brown or Devonta Smith. I think you can double stack Jalen Hurts, which you can almost never do. You can play him with Goddard. In fact, maybe that's even best. You do Hurts and then one of the wide receivers and then Goddard. I'm doing no bringbacks. I'm not playing Amari Cooper. I'm not playing Jerry Jeudy. I'm not playing Jerome Ford. I'm not following. There's another tweet going around about how historically this is the worst DVOA pass defense that a Cleveland Browns team has ever faced to start the year. Every team they faced in pass defense DVOA has been 25th or worse, and it just hasn't mattered.
Yeah.
And obviously Barkley is a pretty strong play too. So that's where I'm at this week.
Yep. Agree across the board. Good spot for the Eagles, and also agree that I think I'm done playing any sort of Browns bring back situation. I guess if I was going to play one, if I double stack the Eagles and Njoku doesn't play, you can play like punt tight end Jordan Akins. That would be probably the only Brown I would be considering.
So I would just offer this to people who sort of think things like, oh, like if they're not pushed, the Eagles are just going to run the ball. So I think in general that would be true, but I'm telling you, like, I think this is at like an organizational level. Like, guys, we got to get some swagger back. Like, if we are up 10 points in the second half, we can still throw. We can still score points because, like, think it like proof of concept for the Philadelphia Eagles. When's the last time you remember being like, damn, dude, they look great? Like week 7 of 2023, week 8 of 2023, something like that. Like it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while. And if you think things like that don't matter, dude, they totally do. They really, I promise you they do. Especially for like Sirianni, who like is probably kind of coaching for his job. And not even probably, he definitely is. When you fire the coordinators but keep the coach and then you get bad results, the coach is the first guy to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's do Barkley real quick before we move on. So like, is Barkley the best play? Is he too expensive? Like kind of where are you at on Barkley just like conceptually for fantasy football right now?
I mean, from a DFS perspective, like week to week, I think he is what he is, which is, the number one running back in fantasy at this moment. I'm still a little bit skeptical that it holds up over the whole course of the season. But from a week to week perspective, I think it's kind of just hard to argue with. So to me, of the running backs we've talked about so far, he would be number one play. Like, I mean, he's better. I mean,
he still only has 12 receptions in 4 games. Like, this is not like he's Alvin Kamara, like they're throwing it to him some, and they're throwing it.
I don't think Alvin Kamara is Alvin Kamara this week. Like, I think that he's if there's one player who I think gets hurt most by the Rattler stuff, it's him, because Derek Carr checks down constantly, and nothing that I've seen from watching Spencer Rattler in college strikes me as a guy who's particularly inclined to get to the check down. Like he doesn't give me check it down for 4 yards on 3rd and 11 vibes. He gives me throw it downfield, fuck around and find out vibes. So
you're definitely talking me more into Rattler, yeah. So AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. I mean, you can play him. In fact, I think you should make an effort, because maybe they don't score enough points for Hurts to get 32 or whatever, like what the GPP winning score would need to be for his salary. But one of AJ Brown or Devonta Smith is getting 25 plus this week. You can take that to the bank examiner. All right, our weekly featuring of your team and their god awful defense. The Indianapolis Colts traveling to play at the Tennessee Titans. Sounds like Anthony Richardson is going to be back this week, which is, I guess, good for the future of the Indianapolis Colts organization. Very bad if you are, very, very bad if you are a Josh Downs believer. So both this projection of 13.71 points and this ownership of 20.2 going to go way down, way down.
Well, will it? Because AR is projected in on this.
I promise you, it will be Downs. He'll be a play because Michael Pittman Jr. is out, but it'll be more like 12%. He will not end up being a super jam, I think.
I agree. So I think it's not as locked in as maybe you do. I could see them being. I think
cautious.
I think the Colts I think A, they want to be cautious with Richardson because they actually do care about him a lot for the future. B, I think that like Steichen clearly would prefer to play call for Joe Flacco. Like if you put him on Truth Serum and said like, who gives you a more enjoyable Sunday afternoon?
Man, I don't know because Steichen really wanted Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, but like he came out. Okay, how about I'll put it this way: without Jonathan Taylor, he would way rather play with Joe Flacco. Because when they have Taylor, that's one thing. Like when they have Taylor, they have a super dynamic running game that's actually pretty interesting in terms of how many different concepts they operate through. And when you combine Taylor with Richardson, that gives you sort of this interesting element where you have to defend against Taylor's a runner, Richardson's a runner, and then the deep pass over the top. But when you take Taylor out, and they might not even have Sermon this week, he also missed practice. So it might be like Tyler Goodson, and I don't even know if Evan Hall's still on the practice squad or what, but it could be really bare bones. If that's the situation that they're dealing with, then like you don't have a run game, so you kind of just have to drop back into pass over and over again. And clearly, if you're doing that, like Flacco is going to be more adept. So I'm curious if they don't just say like, let's just give it one more week of Joe Flacco. In which case, if we get no Pittman and Flacco, every Colt is going to be like absurd chalk between Downs and Pierce and Mitchell getting all the routes from Flacco.
And PPR scam of all time, Trey Sermon. I mean, the PPR, I played a little bit of Trey Sermon last week, but I played him under the expectation that he'd get like a rushing touchdown and like 80 scrimmage yards or something. I did not think that he was going to turn into Larry Centers, which is like effectively how he was being used in that game. I mean, and he
was terrible, but he got there on for fantasy.
I mean, it is the running back skill stuff is a little bit overdone, but I mean, he truly cannot move. Like it is stunning that he is even in that. Like I take Bo Scarborough right wherever Bo Scarborough is, whatever he's doing, I would take him right now straight up over Trey Sermon.
He most certainly runs with a piano on his back. It was tough to watch. Every single time that Tyler Goodson got in the game, he looked infinitely better.
Which is insane because he's not any good either.
No, he's fucking Tyler Goodson. Like, it's not like he's the most like replacement level running back. But every time he got in, I was like, man, this guy's got some juice. So we'll see what happens. I mean, you want to know the PPR scam of all PPR scams. If Trey Sermon misses this game and we get Tyler Goodson RB1 with Joe Flacco, I mean, he might catch 17 passes. I mean, it's gonna be the most Naheem Hines-ass shit you ever seen in your life. So all this game is kind of pending. Basically, if Richardson plays, the only guy that I'm semi-interested in is Alec Pierce.
I would go Mitchell. I would go Mitchell because the Pierce stuff feels so non-replicable. Which like the man said,
I think it's kind of replicable.
Yeah, I was gonna say the man says as the bank examiner takes the keys away from his house or whatever. But like, I don't know. Mitchell is way cheaper, basically running the same sort of routes, but with like a little bit more close to the line of scrimmage. Not that Anthony Richardson could complete those passes anyways. And
that's the issue.
And Mitchell, to credit to his haters, of which there were many in the offseason, he does look like a man who just is not focused on the football field. He like doesn't want to get hit. He's just like making mistakes. But it's so funny because clearly the Colts know he's good, because how often do rookies make mistakes like that? And then they're like, all right, get back out there. You know, like it's pretty nuts.
Well, what they're doing is like they're treating him like he's like a ADHD patient, where it's like they don't trust him to do anything if he's not going to get the ball. Like they
go out there to go run an end around.
Right. Like they clearly pursue him as a liability because he is. Like he's just made so many mistakes here. But they also know he's really talented. So like last week, A.D. Mitchell runs 12 routes, gets 7 targets. Alec Pierce runs 40 routes, gets 3 targets. The craziest part is Alec Pierce still has a higher yards per route run because he turns those 3 targets into 134 yards and 2 touchdowns or whatever it was. But yeah, like when Mitchell's on the field, they're getting him the ball because they want to. It's just like if he's not going to be the first read, they would rather have literally anyone else because they think he might just like lollygag into somebody else's space. or do whatever.
Yeah, it turns out when AD Mitchell was telling NFL scouts he taught George Pickens everything he knows, it meant that he was teaching him how to quit on his routes if he's not getting the ball.
Not just that he quits on his routes. Like the AD Mitchell stuff is, he's a fascinating player because he's so talented. Like his separation ability is incredible. He really could be a superstar.
He really is very good.
Like some of the stuff that he does when he's got his head screwed on is incredible. Like I think he could be the best receiver on this team. But then sometimes it's like coaches and quarterbacks like must hate this guy because the true AD Mitchell classic is like he's supposed to run one route, and then right at his break he's like, what if I made this a double move, and then runs whatever route is in his heart, and then either like runs directly into somebody else's space, or he's wide open, but the quarterback misses him because he didn't think he was running that route, or like whatever else. And it's just like, it's this constant parade of him just being like, maybe I know best. And then it's definitely gotten the ire of the coaching staff, but they're working through it with him. It'll be fun to watch him get an expanded opportunity with Pittman out here.
I suppose I buried the lead, which is that Tony Pollard is the best play of the entire slate as a $6,000 running back against the Indianapolis Colts. I would say
fair.
Yeah, he's gonna end up being the most owned running back. I'm not gonna fight it at all. I really, what would be his path to failure here? I guess he just doesn't score a touchdown.
Well, so the most owned Colts running backs failed 3 straight weeks: Swift, and then Harris, and then Etienne. Bigsby obviously got there last week. But the Colts have been interesting how they've arranged their defense since having all these corner injuries, where like they've basically just given up on the concept of stopping the pass. They know they can't anyway, so they kind of just run blitz every early down now. And like Tate Bigsby had the one big 65-yard run, but his success rate was terrible in this game. It was like 23% because the majority of the time that they ran the ball, they were just running into a wall, except for that one carry. I could easily see a scenario where they do that again, where it's like the Colts are just saying, you're not running the ball on us. We're going to play 8 in the box every single game. We dare you to beat us, Will Levis. Like, I think that's pretty in play. That's kind of what they did to Justin Fields.
You could definitely do Levis and Hopkins or Levis and Ridley or Levitt or double. Like, I probably won't do it. Like, the skin in the game answer is that I won't do it, but you definitely could. I just wanted to pull up the utilization stuff with Pollard and Spears.
You could also play Spears at 5,100. 900 cheaper is going to be totally unowned. I think that's a reasonable way around it.
So basically, every week of the season, Pollard has played more, gotten more snaps. There was a small change last week where Spears pulled ahead in the long down and distance, or in week 4. I am a Pollard slappy. I will always be a Pollard slappy, but sure. Yeah, I think you can get away with it. All right, let's move on to the Chargers at the Denver Broncos. I've been saying all week it's a 10-game slate, but it's really an 8-game slate because there's really not a player I would play in this. I wouldn't play Sutton. I wouldn't really be all that interested in playing Dobbins. Maybe you could talk me into Dobbins. Maybe you could talk me into Javonte, but you'd have to be pretty silver tongued to get me there. I mean, Dobbins is 6,200. He's not even that cheap.
I think I'll probably play Javonte, I don't know if I'll play him, but he'll be in my pool. Like I late swapped to Javonte last week in one of my lineups, and I could see late swapping to him again. His role is pretty good now. Like he's been living in the 55 to 65% snaps range. He's getting all of the passing work, and he's getting a share of the goal line work. He's just kind of running bad at the goal line, both in the literal and figurative sense. And he is running badly and running bad at the goal line. But that'd probably be the one play. Maybe the other one would
Lad.
be actually Lad.
Lad.
I was gonna say Lad is the other one where the Broncos are a heavy man coverage team, and Pat Surtain has not traveled into the slot this year. So I think what we'll probably see is Surtain will have basically just a vacation where he gets to lock down Quentin Johnston.
Yeah,
that requires very little.
I think he could do that with his hands literally tied behind his back.
Right. So I think he'll basically have a week off this week. And then Lad McConkey gets to, destroy man coverage from the slot, which is what he was put on this earth to do. The only issue with this game is like it's going to be over in 2 hours and
so
4 minutes.
Yeah.
Because like Harbaugh just wants to run and play slow. Peyton just wants to run and play slow. I think they'll both get their wish in this one. And it's going to be like, just terrible. So even Lad McConkey, I'm trepidatious. Like if that ownership sticks, I'll play
it's just
him.
That he's cheap,
but I do wonder if I'm just playing for a 6 for 60.
There's just not a ton of cheap plays this week. There's just not that many guys who are appealing below 5,000, and Lad is like a wide receiver 1 on a team and can score. I guess one thing I would say for Dobbins is Gus did not practice Wednesday. I think they are going to be sending the Gus bus into the shop, and I think we are going to see Vidal active this week, and that could mean one of two things. One, that could mean the end of J.K. Dobbins as an 80% rush share running back, or it could be the introduction of 100% rush share J.K. Dobbins. It really could mean I would have low conviction either way.
Yeah, I think Dobbins can have a great role in this game. It's just, again, like Denver defense is pretty good too.
It's very good.
Catch a lot of passes. I don't know. I feel good about his floor. I'm just not super pumped about the ceiling in this spot. So maybe that's just vibes based. Maybe I shouldn't care. But
all right, let's stay in Siberia. We have the Las Vegas Raiders and the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can always play Fields. Not really that into Najee, although every running back seems to get there against the Raiders. And Bowers, we said it last week. Bowers, he's just a skill play. You could pretty much play Bowers any week. You could probably even play Tucker. But you want to talk about a game that's going to be over in 2 hours. This game is also going to be over in 2 hours. It's just these are just, now that teams are actually scoring points and trying to score points, we're 6 weeks into the season. Some of these passing offenses are starting to gel. Like, if you think about it, like, how many total fantasy points are going to be scored in this game versus Detroit and Dallas? There might be 70 fewer available fantasy points, period, to be split amongst all players in Las Vegas, Pittsburgh than Detroit and Dallas. So even Fields doesn't really feel that appealing to me.
Yeah, this one, if Fields plays, I'm into it, but again, like 12% on naked quarterback in DFS, not super fun. Thoughts on Pickens? Do you think the punishment continues? Because like in a vacuum, 5.9K George Pickens against the Raiders, that's a jam. But he is reasonably pissed off all of his coaches, as he is wont to do. You tell us. You're the George Pickens bull on this program. I'm but a pencil pusher.
Feels like he needs another week of like getting. It does not feel like a Pickens explosion spot to me. As like kind of the George Pickens vibes based guy. This feels more like we teach everyone a lesson by Najee Harris running the ball 26 times for 82 yards because the Raiders can't really punish you for doing that. The Raiders' only path to punishing these teams is Brock Bowers converting a truly awful throw from one of these bad quarterbacks and doing something with it. Even Trey Tucker in a week where we are starved for salary doesn't really feel that interesting to me. You definitely, like, if Sims are giving you some of him, I'm not like excluding Trey Tucker from the pool, but yeah, Raiders defense at 3K. There you go. There's the Raiders play from this game. A much more interesting game. We are going to close out with two very good games. I think we have the Atlanta Falcons traveling to play at the Carolina Panthers. This one feels like if you get a good read on this, it feels pretty phenomenal because the Falcons have so many fantasy points available between Bijan, London, Mooney, even McLeod, even Kyle Pitts, Cousins doubles. Like, what do we take away from that game against Tampa Bay? Was it a 1 week matchup thing? Is Kirk Cousins back? Are they ready to be a plus PROE team? And then, Deontay Johnson, bad last week, but good role. Chuba Hubbard, like basically one of the top 5 running back roles in the NFL. What are we doing here?
Yeah, so this is a kind of a fun game. Nice to have two old pocket quarterbacks going back and forth in our lives. Two kings of the Sunday afternoon window noted non-primetime players. This is a good game. I think it was a little bit of both of what you said. I think that they kind of started out as a matchup thing. I think it also was a Bijan Robinson hamstring thing.
Yep.
Where they wanted to start pass heavy. It was working. They fell behind, so they had to keep doing it. And then it was also, I think, a matchup against Tampa Bay, which has just been a pass funnel forever. That being said, I also think that it's the kind of game where they look at their offense, they go, man, we scored 36 points. Kirk is up to it. He proved he was up to it. Maybe we stay a little bit more pass heavy going forward. The biggest question that starts this game off, though, is like, can you do a 30% owned Bijan Robinson after what we've seen this season?
Because that's the thing.
Man,
I think there are
6.6 Panthers. Wow, I have no idea what to do with this.
I think there's enough people who are going to be hesitant to click it that it kind of settles. Like, also, we've seen this phenomenon of DFS a ton this year where the running back who's actually projected to be the most owned ends up not being the most owned because so many people feel the need to get fancy. I think he kind of does settle like 25, 30% owned, like doesn't get too out of hand. And yeah, I'm just playing him, man. Because even in a reality where Tyler Algier is playing 40% of the snaps, Bijan is still a good play. And in a reality where he really was limited by the hamstring injury and they really go back to him this week, he's like the most underpriced guy of the slate. I think London, my big takeaway actually from the beginning of the season, I had a subscriber ask me about this on Patreon. Like, I have London really high. And I think the Mooney, McLeod, Pitt stuff on that Thursday night game actually is hiding the fact that London is now just like a bona fide, legit alpha wide receiver one on a team with a good quarterback that wants to pass. Like the London truthers, like it's all happening for you. Like London, like the Drake London thing, the touchdown he scored. I was like, respectfully, I did not know your game, Drake London. Like that was like a nice catch after run, broke a tackle, got a spin move in. Like I think the London thing is totally happening. I don't know if I'd play them together, but if Sims were giving it to me, I probably wouldn't fight it. I think Cousins, London, Mooney, or McLeod, or Pitts, take your pick, with Deontay Johnson, with Hubbard, with Leggett. I mean, these are just good ways to build teams.
Is Leggett gonna play?
He got a limited practice
okay.
in.
Good.
So I'm assuming he's good. I'm assuming he's good to go.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think you could get away with Dalton in this game if you're just like, well, if Cousins is going to throw for 350 yards, it probably means Dalton throws 57 times. Although against the Bears, they did just give up, which I thought was interesting. Like they did, like basically in the second half, they were like, it's just not happening for us. But maybe that just happens. Like, you know, it's just kind of a vibes-based thing. The coaches decided it's not happening today. And maybe they changed their mind against the Falcons, you know. I don't know. Yeah. I don't have a specific read on that.
That's very possible. But yeah, I love every part of this game. I'll probably do. I think like the Bijan stuff is a good play. I totally acknowledge that. I'll probably do that at least in one lineup. But I think the more interesting play to me is probably the Cousins doubles, and then you play Chuba, and maybe you add on Deontay, who had another near miss touchdown last week. This time it wasn't his fault. Andy Dalton just missed him, but that's just part of the deal, man. Every single week we have to have a Deontay touchdown that isn't.
Yeah. Mooney or McLeod, you could only have one.
Mooney.
Yeah.
Mooney.
Yeah. Mooney.
Moon dog.
This 12% Mooney, that's going up. He's going to be 19% or something. And Leggett, I will do. And I will say, you know, again, there's this other interesting thing. We've all become such fucking nerds. It's insane. Actually, Kyle Pitts having 7 for 80 is bad because he had less of a target share than Ray McLeod. And then you just zoom out in the chart and you're like, do you know how much you would have killed for a Kyle Pitts 7 for 80 game last year? Like, or just any tight end having 7 for 80? Like, Pitts is squarely in. In fact, he would be my preferred double partner with Kirk Cousins over Mooney and over McLeod. Yeah. And Hubbard is just a very good play as well. All right, I've got a scalding hot take for this final game. And I would say this is the game you most need to get right this week if you were planning on playing daily fantasy contests. The Detroit Lions traveling to play at the Dallas Football Cowboys. It is the highest total game of the week. It is being played in a dome. We have CeeDee Lamb. We have St. Brown. High-level thoughts on Detroit versus Dallas.
This is going to be a hoot. I'm hoping, praying for the sake of my best ball bags, for the sake of our primetime team, which sadly suffered its first loss last week. And
Brutal.
will be starting the worst running backs ever this week.
I think, did we win Ty Johnson in waivers? If we won Ty Johnson, okay,
did.
then we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine.
Because we have no Kyron, we have no Achant, we probably have no Moss. So this is probably currently we're looking at Ty Johnson and Amir Abdullah.
We're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. Ty Johnson is getting 16 points in a revenge game against the Jets.
Yeah, Ty Dollar sign. So anyway, all that hopefully we move because hopefully we're going to get 50 from CeeDee Lamb. Yeah, man. I mean, Dak, CeeDee, 27% on Jake Ferguson. Tough and fair.
No, that's the thing is I want to be like, well, really? But dude, he's like top 20 in the NFL period in targets per route run. Like he just is legit earning volume. And
I can't play it, but it's fair. But
so I was just off the top of your head, how many total rushing attempts do you think the Lions have faced through 4 games? Just teams trying to run. It's the lowest. It's the lowest in the NFL.
I'll guess 56.
No, that would be it's 83. You outdid me. That is 20.25 ish, 20.2 rush attempts faced against per game. That is like far and away, like no team is within 15 of them. They have the fewest rushing yards against. They have allowed 5 rushing touchdowns, which is just like stuff like that happens. They are organizationally committed to just saying you are not running on us. I can't think of a team that is more acquiescent to not running than the Rico Dowdle, Ezekiel Elliott, Hunter Lupke, Dallas Cowboys. I will say
Mike McCarthy this week. He was like, we rediscovered the run. That's who we are. We need 30 rush attempts, 30 pass attempts every game.
Well, if that's true, Rico Dowdle is a generational leverage play because CD is chalk, Ferguson's chalk, Tolbert's chalk. Tolbert is I wanted to make Tolbert my gold star play, but I don't know if you can make a $5,000 wide receiver who's 20% owned your gold star play. No, I will be playing the shit out of him. He is probably my favorite play of the week. I've added him on a bunch of high stakes teams. However, Lamb and St. Brown coming in so low as a function of salary, just because of the way salary works this week, feels very exploitable. I feel like one of these guys, maybe both of them, kind of breaks the slate. Gibbs feels like a strong play. But I mean, it just feels like no one in fantasy sports ever learns anything. Like Montgomery just gets more touches, more points than Gibbs every week. He's always less expensive, and no one ever wants to play him. I mean, he is Montgomery. Like, you want to know how the afternoon games never shoot out? You want to know how to profit off of that? You want to know how to profit off of everyone being bummed out? Just slide David Montgomery in your flex. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
He's a phenomenally good
It's another
play.
Tough but fair.
Very tough, but very fair. And then JMO also. I mean, look, we have a whole page of guys you could conceivably play in daily fantasy sports contests. Don't think we see that very often. The entire rotogrinders page. It's like, yeah, I think you could get away with any of these guys.
Yeah, certainly.
All right, there we go. Let's build a team. You can start. You can have any player you want on rotogrinders.com in their opto.
All right. I'm gonna do wishful thinking because I need this big game quite badly. So I'm gonna get good vibes rolling. Give me Sedarian Lamb.
Wow. Okay. So that's pretty. I mean, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting. And I will. I will. Well, should we stack CeeDee Lamb or should we do something else? Trying to think if we just went through that whole thing and I just didn't really love any of the cheap wide receivers. You know what I'm going to do? I am going to take Lad. I think Lad is kind of the way to play that game, and I think he gets a little bit overlooked because that game environment is so weak.
Yeah, that totally checks out. All right. Let's see here.
Now we get into the tricky stuff.
All right, give me David Montgomery.
David Montgomery and CeeDee Lamb, insanely good correlations. There's a really interesting thing. I believe that our boy Sedarian, I believe the number is he has 23 receiving yards in the second half of games this season. So it's been like he's just smashed, and then they have not been able to figure it out in the second half. On this team, do we play Dak or do we try and do?
Up to you.
Yeah, let's try it. Let's try Dak and see where we get. Let's try Dak and let's get Buccaneers defense. You want to talk about stone chalk defense is the Buccaneers defense. All right. So we have $5,175 left per slot. So not nothing, but we probably are gonna have to punt tight end on this team.
Yes, we very likely are. All right, I will take care of the punt tight end. I'll correlate it with, I think, probably one of the guys that you want to play. Let's see. Or you know what? I take that back because maybe Njoku will play. I was going to say Jordan Akins, but I don't want to build a potentially dead team. I will do. Let's see if we can squeeze one more expensive piece out of this. Maybe I'll have to live to regret this, but let's do no, I won't fuck you with that. All right, I'll go James Conner. I was gonna potentially stick you with Jaden Reed, but I'll give you a little more salary flexibility.
Well, let's see where we get. Let's do Conner, and then I'm gonna take Pollard, who I just like
3 RBs. There we go.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I think if you're punting tight end this week, I think Juwan Johnson is probably your guy.
Yeah,
it's probably
that's a good call.
It's probably Juwan, who was 82% of the routes last week. This leaves
Tavian.
us. Well, you know who fits. You know who's going to fit right here.
Okay, who's going to fit?
Oh, it's 100 short. It's 100 short
of
Xavier Leggett. So instead of Connor, let's do Jacobs. Oh, instead of Connor, let's do.
Help?
Can we do? Oh, instead of Connor, let's do Devonta Smith.
Okay, that'll do it.
Pollard, and then Leggett, and you've got swaps because that's an afternoon game.
There we go.
Beautiful. All right.
That's Petras.
Dak Prescott, David Montgomery, Tony Pollard, CeeDee Lamb, Ladd McConkey, Devonta Smith, Juwan Johnson, Xavier Leggett in the Buccaneers defense. That's actually a pretty good team. I like that. I bet that sims out okay. Probably not a ton with Leggett. But the projections are just not woke to Xavier Leggett. They're not woke. All right, man. Let's do our gold star plays and let's get out of here, man.
This is a tough week for me with the gold star plays. I don't have
it's so condensed
at me, to be honest. Yeah. But all right, I'll shoot for the home run play. I was hoping I'd find something I liked more. Screw it. Give me sub 1% Chris Olave with Spencer Rattler.
It's a really
12
good
down there somewhere game. I'll support your Oklahoma Sooners here by proxy. Give me a lot.
We don't really claim him, to be honest. Some of the Oklahoma transfers we claim. Although I did just read there was a great article that was published on ESPN yesterday about Barry Switzer and just kind of his role in Norman and Noble and everything. I bet he would still claim Spencer Rattler. He claims like anyone who's ever been to that institution, like even for a cup of coffee. So this one doesn't really count. You did a brave thing, but my gold star play is going to be Devonta Smith. He basically did have that role that everyone talked about all offseason, like the Kellen Moore, the Keenan Allen scam, the CeeDee Lamb, like the thing that took CeeDee Lamb from being a good wide receiver to a great fantasy wide receiver. Like that did happen. The season has just been so stop and start with all the injuries and the travel and the Eagles just had a weird start to the year. Total get right spot. Devonta Smith is in the winning lineup of the SPY this week because he is going to be in my lineup. All right, guys, we are going to go ahead and get out of here. Make sure that you are subscribed to Thinking About Thinking. It's a great read every single week. It's going to get your guys' fantasy teams in the right spot. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. And Jacob and I will be back with you all in a week, hopefully with some Chris Olave and Devonta Smith riches.